friends, and welcome to AEW Unrestricted. I'm Will Washington, and she is the one and only Aubrey Edwards. Aubrey.
Hi, hello.
We're here. It's AEW Unrestricted. It's
Yay!
another, I guess, what is this? It's
Thursday?
a Thursday. It's a Thursday if you're
Monday?
listening, but it's a Monday if you're watching.
Right.
And I mean, like, it is a Monday in our lives, right? It's a
Right.
Monday for everybody at some point. And don't forget, folks, that this podcast right here, AEW Unrestricted, the official podcast of AEW, is presented by Upper Deck.
Yeah.
Look at us. Collect your favorite wrestlers in 2025 Upper Deck AEW and start your trading card collection today. Unwrap autograph memorabilia or premium tech inserts. Visit upperdeck.com to learn more. I've got my pack right here. I always love opening these up. And look at this right off the bat. We got a man who just returned a couple weeks ago at All In. Got the rated R superstar Adam Copeland. Cope.
Look at that. I actually have two guys that just came back at All In too, who we saw team recently on an episode of Collision. I have a Austin Gunn and a Juice Robinson, which I don't know if you saw the interview he did with Renee Paquette and the close up.
Oh,
that was good.
That was phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Like Juice has just always been an awesome person, and I love that the Juice is loose again. Pretty great.
Yeah, and I just had, and I seem to have misplaced it among all these cards here. I had a Platinum Max card, and it was like a Platinum card. And like, my God, and I was going to say, like,
irony.
Yeah, honestly, I know losing, but I was going to say that I have to say, I have become such a fan of the 5-minute challenges. It's so funny that like the chant, the let's go Mac,
you're the best wrestler alive.
It was supposed to, like, it's very obviously supposed to be like a bad chant, but it has caught on every city we go to that I'm starting to hear it, and every fan is getting on board with let's go Mac, you're the best wrestler alive.
It made it when it suddenly became like a friendship bracelet. Like it was the first letter of every word. Like, let's go, Max.
Great.
Oh my God, it's great. But yeah, I mean, Max Caster, formerly of the Acclaimed. I pulled a lot of tag teams in this deck. We've got Dark Order, some guys who've been around since day one of AEW. We've got FTR. We've got, they're one of the best tag teams in the world. We've got Top Flight. Very underrated guys, but always super creative in the ring. Also, I don't think I've ever seen them have a bad day. They're always really fun, friendly bros, cool to hang out with. And tag teams are sort of the name of the game. I mean, when we have more than one guest here, it's a bit tricky. So Will, do you have any suggestions on how we handle our guests today?
I think we're going to have to tag team this one, Aubrey, because we're talking with one of the prominent tag teams here in All Elite Wrestling. We are talking with James Drake, Zack Gibson, the Grizzled Young Vets. Thank you for being here on AEW Unrestricted.
Thanks for having us, guys. Thanks for having us.
We literally just landed from a flight from the UK about within the hour, so bear with us.
Ridiculous.
Well, let's talk about that, because literally you guys wrestled. Did you guys wrestle Rev Pro last night?
Yeah, so we wrestled Friday night and last night for Rev Pro. It's their British tag team tournament they're doing at the moment. We are 6 points up at the moment. But yeah, we had two very competitive fights. Friday, we had, weirdly enough, the guys we fought on Friday, we actually trained. Since they were like fun. 12 and 11, and it's one of those things. It's like the saying, product of your own design. I was on the receiving end of the product of our own design because I was getting battered. I've got a black eye. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah.
And all I could think about was, I did this. I taught them this. So it's been great. Great atmosphere. Awesome.
The tag teams in question, the Young Guns, Ethan Allen and Luke Jacobs, they're doing everything the right way. They're dominating in the UK, winning titles up and down. So they're a team to watch. Might as well throw them a shout out while we're here, and also point out that we did win.
Hey, you know what? That's really the most important thing at the end of the day. Well, thank you so much for being here, guys. Like that's we occasionally it comes up on this podcast like talking about how to make it in wrestling, and it's just like the constant grind, and it's literally getting off of a plane in the UK to hop on a podcast before you have to then go back to work and all of these sort of things. It's like it never stops, and I like that we're just hitting it right out of the gate on this one. So you guys were obviously really, really big from the UK, came from the UK, and you were training people in the UK. Let's talk a little bit about kind of your start in wrestling. So, Zach, how about we start with you?
Yeah, sure. I just loved it when I was growing up. You know, I didn't have access to as much as some of the other lads that were around me. So, like even James, for example, had in the UK we have like Sky Sports. That's where like the majority of the mainstream wrestling was, and I didn't really have access to that. I had access only to Channel 4, which meant that I got Sunday Night Heat once a week.
Ooh.
And every 4 months I got one of the free pay-per-views. And that was still enough for me to get hooked the way that I did. I was a big fan of Power Rangers when I was growing up.
Who wasn't?
Exactly. Which is larger than life characters, good versus evil. So I'm sure you can see the natural transition into pro wrestling. And I started training to do this when I was 15. So it's basically all I've really known for. I've been doing this longer than I've not been doing it now, which is a weird thing to say.
Wow, that when you hit that milestone, that's got to feel like something special. When you realize like more of my life has been dedicated to this thing than hasn't been.
Yeah, and obviously, like I said, I started when I was 15, and you know, we call ourselves Grizzled Young Veterans. That's exactly where it came from. You know, that was a name that was given to us by our peers because we would carry ourselves a little bit beyond our years, and it's also intricate. It's also built into our actual tag team. It's built into everything that we bring, based on the fact that I started when I was 15, and when I believe I was 16 at the time, is actually when I met JD because he had just started training at the age of 12. So we've literally been training together and doing this since we were little kids.
Well, let's talk about that, James. I mean, that sounds like quite a journey in yourself.
So similar to Zach was like we didn't have the money to watch it on a weekly basis, but we had like secondhand video games, and I think it was SmackDown 1 or 2, and I was like 4 at the time. And that was the thing that was just like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what wrestling was, but it was just like energy. You know, you go ding ding, it's just energy constantly. And that just kind of captivated me at such a young age. Similar to Jack, like larger than life characters. Like I loved Star Wars when I was younger and X-Men. Absolutely loved it. So just like in that time frame of where wrestling was, it was like big characters. Kind of just it was synonymous with superheroes and Star Wars and fiction and all sorry non-fiction, but like all these things. Like it got to a point where I spent all my time either playing the games or finding tapes and stuff. And truth be told, I was a kid that didn't really have a thing. A lot of kids either played football or, just various other things. I didn't have one, and I was a bit of an overweight kid. I just liked playing video games, and I was very unconfident and shy about stuff. And then my mum found a wrestling school in Preston, UK. They shouldn't have taken a 12-year-old, but they did. And
I was going to ask.
It was it was one of those things where it sounds. I'm not trying to pull on people's heartstrings here, but it was the first time in my life I got positive feedback on things I was doing because I watched so much of it. Like when they said like do an arm drag and they showed me the technique, and it wasn't perfect, but I did it quite, because I've watched it so much. And that was like someone of authority giving me, the pat on the back sort of thing. And that really, really meant a lot to me at that time. So I just was obsessed with wrestling after that. Then I found, as everyone can imagine in the wrestling community, I found Daily Motion. And
Oh
Daily
my
Motion
God! Is that the first Daily Motion drop on this show? Because like,
I think so, actually.
because what's interesting is like, yeah, as a wrestling fan, of course, that was where I had to find everything. But like,
yeah,
man, that
Ring of
takes me
Honor
back.
2005 through Daily Motion is unreal. What a time to grow up.
Every day after school, I went down the rabbit hole because I think it was like that was one of those things with Dailymotion where I think it was one of the first, like similar to YouTube, but it had like related videos. So you type in the things like you type in Shawn Michaels or something like that, but then all of a sudden you'd come across, New Japan Super J tournament, '95. But I knew Chris Jericho at the time, so I was like, oh, he's in it. And all of a sudden you go deep into that world and you're like, what is this? And that kind of, became a thing. And I think my first show, I was 15 years old. And I used to go to school with black eyes, stiff necks, wobbly teeth, all that stuff. I don't know. It's just, when people talk about like how it's a grind and it's a grind to get to where you want to get to and how big the mountain is and stuff, it is all true. But what people kind of forget is like it's not a grind if you love it, because you just want to be in it at that moment. If you're always thinking of the next thing, you're not present and you don't enjoy the thing. And for me and Zach at the time, being a British wrestler from like 2005 to like 2013-ish, it was very unheard of any of us jumping overseas and making a real thing of it. But that really didn't deter us. We just loved wrestling. We actually just loved the art form of it, and we obviously we want those aspirations, we want those goals to the dream to happen. But in the moment when we're doing these holiday camp shows that like Brian Danielson's done and other people like Nigel's done and all these things, like we just loved it. And then you blink and all of a sudden you're 10 years deep and you're like, oh wow, okay. And as things go and the deeper you get into a business, you start creating the context that you kind of need to create, and reps and reps and reps, and it kind of gets to a point where you do get scouted and things are happening, and it's still a bit of a crazy story. The whole thing's a bit of a crazy story, but that's kind of how we both started.
That then brings the question of, I think kind of when you talk to every wrestler, they all have dreams of seeing themselves kind of on the stage and seeing the spotlight shine on them. But that always begs the question of what made you guys decide that a tag team was what you needed to be? I'll start with Zach on that one.
Yeah, go on. I think as JD kind of already sort of hinted at there, I think our initial goals, they always start maybe differently, right? Like, so bear in mind, again, we started when we were 15 and 12 years old, respectively there. My initial goal was to get body slammed in a ring instead of on the grass. That was it. So like, if I could just, if we could do these moves with my friends and instead of smashing my spine into the patio outside my house, I can do it into a ring, then, that'll be it. I've achieved my dreams. And then I go into a training school. They had a ring. I was like, that was quick. turns out we achieved that goal quite quick. So then it's just like, if I could just wrestle in front of an audience. If I could just get paid to wrestle in front of an audience. Those things keep on moving. And naturally, it is almost it's just the things that happen along the way that kind of end up molding what you become and steering you in certain directions. Both of us have had successful singles careers as well. We've both won titles around the UK, around Europe. As individual wrestlers, as singles wrestlers, we tagged when we were very young. Then we had portions of singles. Then we came back to a tag team. Then we had portions of singles. But it was around sort of 2019, maybe a little bit early actually, sort of 2017, 2018, when we were put together by Progress, that we saw an opportunity to actually carve out our own niche. And I think that was the first time that we really put our heads together and said, look, we've done this together on numerous occasions in the past. Let's make this run different. Let's go all in, basically. Let's really put our heads together. Let's train a few extra days a week together. Let's see what we can do as a tag team and really see how far we can get. And obviously, years and years of traveling together. We had actually lived together already at that point. All of those things, I think, factored in. and we just hit our stride, and everything started clicking. And before you know it, people were talking about us like we were a top team, and more people start saying it, more you believe in it, that confidence starts hitting, and it all just steamrolled. And before you know it, moving to the States together, we ended up living together in the States for another year before our partners were both able to come over. And yeah, just never look back. Basically, I think we're still more than capable, if ever the time needed, to go and do some singles stuff again. But as a tag team, we've just really, I think we found our niche. I think we found our strengths. Where I have my weaknesses, JD picks me up. If he has weaknesses, I pick him up. So we just complement each other very well. And if you ask me to sort of list out some of my favourite matches, I find myself listing our tag team stuff. So I'm in no hurry. Don't worry, JD. I'm in no hurry to break up the team.
I love it. I like that you've just gone all in on tag teams, and that's a nice segue. We'll come back. We got more to talk about with the Grizzled Young Vets coming back after this break. AEW Unrestricted, you've got Aubrey and Will, and we are talking to James Drake and Zack Gibson of the Grizzled Young Vets, hearing a little bit about how they've started wrestling when they were wee little lads and getting teamed up together and having all of the success all over the world, the UK, everywhere. And now they're here at AEW. And I want to talk about, we kind of mentioned All In a little bit. I want to mention, what was it like showing up at All In Wembley, confronting the Young Bucks and attacking FTR in this triple threat tag team match? What was all of this like, this moment being at Wembley Stadium in the UK?
So, it's a loaded question, that, to be honest. And it's a great question because I have really deeply thought about it. One of the things that's kind of like come to me was when it was all kind of happening, like without going into the past and everything, we left another company. We decided to leave. It wasn't, we were given the door. We wanted to pursue AEW. We've been watching the product ever since, it started in 2019, and we saw how passionate people were there, and we saw the growth that could happen. And did happen there. And, it's one of those things, like, it sounds so cliche, but it really is a thing to me. It's like, you only live once. And especially with being in such a physical career, that career is such a short life. I don't want to, leave any stones unturned. I don't want any regrets. I don't want to, I didn't get into wrestling to play it safe. If I wanted it safe, I would have carried on with my, university degree. I would have carried on doing a master's and stuff. But it got to a point where I couldn't let it settle. This idea of us, going to AEW, seeing what this is about, getting to wrestle with arguably the best tag teams in the world, and I will, say that to this day still. It was itching at me, and it got to a point where we had a conversation, and we said we needed to do this, for us. We need to go and, see what this is about, not just watching it, actually being a part of it. It was very, very scary, the idea of us, going off like we're immigrants, essentially. We're leaving, we're leaving safety and security, very safe and secure where we were as well, to pursue another dream, another milestone in our careers. Nothing was guaranteed, and the competition is extremely high. In that match, you had the Acclaimed, you had Young Bucks, and you had FTR. All three absolutely stellar tag teams, and we're getting involved in the end. It says a lot. It speaks volumes. So I had a morning walk that morning, just to kind of. I'm a very deep thinker, in the sense that I just kind of like reflect on everything, and I like to just be present as much as possible. And I remember walking to, get coffee, and normally I'm really big into my music, so normally I have headphones in. That morning I didn't, and I was just thinking about the whole day, and kind of looking at the past year before that, and kind of going, we did bet on ourselves, and now we are going to make an impact, and not only make an impact and then kind of like, and then take it easy. It was more like, now we're getting going again. We get to sink our teeth into a whole new division, a whole new product. Because it's not just, I really don't like when people say wrestling is wrestling, no matter where you go. Because when you watch what AEW is doing is such a breath of fresh air. They are really spinning, heads in a sense that what you expect to be the norm, what you expect to be the standard quo of what wrestling is, the cadences, and this is that, plug-in, storyline or whatever. It's just not the case with AEW, and you don't know where it goes. But when it does pay off, it's incredible. So I get really excited about that, and the whole day is going to be one of those days where no matter where I am in my life, I will never forget that day. It was one of those days. I remember walking, going, today's one of those days that won't blur into obscurity. It will be solidified as a milestone, not just in my professional life, but in my personal life, because at this point, I'm 20 years into wrestling. Same as Zach said, like, I am more of a wrestler than I am of a civilian. So it's all just kind of like, together now. A very special day for me, and to have it in the UK as well, to have it win in front of people that have watched us, in front of 50 people that have watched us all over the UK, from like 15 years old with like bleach blonde hair, looking like a boy band guy, some people there would have actually seen us at our, origins and get to that point. It was a very special moment for me.
And yeah, it literally doesn't get bigger than Wembley Stadium in the UK. So I've watched plenty of football tournaments be decided in that stadium. We've seen incredible concerts, incredible events. I was at a point in my life where I thought we had, for lack of a better term, I thought we had completed the UK. I thought I'd already wrestled at every famous venue there was to wrestle at in the UK, because I didn't even consider Wembley Stadium to be an option. So I just thought I'd already done it. I'd already main evented the Royal Albert Hall. I thought, well, I can't get any bigger than that. So I think I've finished the WWE. I think I've completed it, mate. Done. Move on. And then, so when we got that offer, like, my dad, he's not the biggest wrestling fan. In fact, he didn't want me to do it in the first place. I did it for a couple of years behind his back. Now he's a bit more supportive now that I'm successful. Now he gets to brag about it. Because he doesn't love it and because he doesn't know that much about it. It's things like this where it piques his interest. And I remember, like, I told him, I showed him the pictures of us coming out at Wembley Stadium, and that was a nice moment for me and my family as well, for him to be like, holy, you guys really did it. That's incredible. We have pictures of us now just as the other guys on the show. I'm sure there isn't a single guy in that locker room that features on those shows that isn't immensely proud of standing there in front of that sea of people in such a famous venue. So yeah, really, really cool moment for us.
One of the things I'm appreciating about you, Zach, in your mentality is that with you, it's always like, where I am now, this is, I appreciate where I'm at, and this is the best it's going to get. And then not even considering what's forward, but then then you realize when you look back, oh my God, I thought that was the best it was going to get. Now this is, and that's been kind of a consistent theme of your story. And I think that's really cool. I think that's really admirable, because you do kind of take the time to just appreciate where you're at and smell the flowers. And I think that that's something that a lot of us can kind of remember to stop and do.
Yeah, it is important. We have a training school out in Florida. We used to run it in the UK, which is why we have a couple of guys that we can put our stamp on in the UK. Obviously, now that we live in Florida, we've reopened the school with Pete Dunne. So it's myself, James, and Pete Dunne. We run that school in Sanford, Florida. And that is one of the things that we do keep on telling the lads in there. Obviously, when you're training to be a wrestler, it's very important to learn techniques correctly, to learn psychology correctly. There's so much that goes into wrestling that we don't need to touch upon right now. But one of the ones that we do keep on hammering home is it's almost cliched, right, for people to say sort of enjoy the journey. I think some people might turn their nose up at because it's become a cliche. But it's a cliche for a reason, because people that have done it have kept on saying it because it's important. That's why people keep saying it, because it is important. And it was actually missing part of the journey that led us to this sort of second run that we're on now, because we didn't want to sit still. We didn't want to stay put. We missed all of those things, traveling around all the different countries, going over to Hong Kong, China, all these places around Europe that we've been to. That's the bit that I love the most about this job. Maybe not necessarily the flying itself, but getting to Yeah, you can attest to that.
Oh man, my body hurts more from flying than it does from reffing. So
100%. My chiropractor will regularly be like, "Oh my god, what did this to you?" I was like, window
sitting.
seat. Yeah.
Yep.
I leaned against the window and I fell asleep.
The lean to the window while you're trying to sleep. It'll destroy your spine more than bumps will.
Definitely the combo of the two as well is not a good combo.
It really
Jumping
is.
on your spine for a living and then sitting up straight for 7 hours.
So one of the things that I was trying to look back and figure out like how many times I've gotten the chance to work with you guys since you started. And I think the first time we all got to work together was actually the Jericho Cruise, which I think is like a good juxtaposition to Wembley Stadium because it's like the exact opposite of this like completely out there rowdy thing that you would never ever think was going to be a possibility. But here you are in the middle of the ring doing all of Jericho's moves from the last 30 years. What is wrestling on a giant open boat like for you guys after everything else that you've done in your careers?
Honestly, it feels like, so when we went to go do Save the Holiday Camps in the UK, the first tour we did, it was just like, you bright eyes, bushy tail, like this is all crazy, it's amazing, and then you do TV for the first time, same thing, and it felt like that. It was just a completely new idea, concept, but then also like experience it as a whole, not just wrestling, but like for me and Zach, like we do like to get to know like the fans. We don't. They're very, we like what we do on TV and stuff, but like we also do like to take time to tell people like, hey, if you're parting a lot of money to come support pro wrestling, we appreciate that, and we do want to get to know people in that sense, because like if it isn't for them, then there's just nothing. We've all been in wrestling long enough to know, like, hey, do you remember that dark time in wrestling when like nothing was going on, and like when you look at TV wrestling, it was really bad. None of us want that now, and
Nope.
to keep that going is all on the fans being passionate. Like not diverting away, but you look at All In from a couple of weeks ago. Well, you're in the atmosphere, you're looking at the arena, they're all there, not just because they're going to watch, not there to watch wrestling, they're to watch All In. And that felt similar in the sense of the Jericho Cruise, where we get there and everyone just you get the feel straight away that everyone absolutely loves pro wrestling, and they also want to see a different side to what they see on TV. They want to see a bit more intimate and more fun, more party, holiday-esque show. Not saying anyone's phoning it in. It's not a bad show whatsoever. It's just
it's fun. Not phoned in at all.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I don't know if there's footage around, but like, whenever you give me a chance to goof around, and like, well, I will play the straight guy and be like, you can laugh at me and stuff like that. But anytime you get the chance to do that, I will go all the way in, because I love that. I love the idea of the escapism of what wrestling can be and what it should be sometimes. We get stuck in our own world in the sense that we're like tunnel vision of like what we want to do in pro wrestling wise, but then we sometimes forget to take a step back and think about, well, what are the general public going through on a day-to-day basis. They're probably got, like, if they've got a stressful job, stressful life, or just God forbid, like some horrible things are going on in their lives, and they tune into wrestling for a form of escapism. You want to give it them, and I don't know anyone's personal situation, but maybe some people on that cruise were going through some rough times, and they went, let's go on a cruise together, let's go on a cruise as a family, whatever it is, to go and de-stress, to whatever it is. And me and Zach made sure that we wanted to get people laughing, get people enjoying, and if they were seeing us around, at catering or at the bar or something, we would spend time to get to know who they are, what they do, everything, because we don't take any of this for granted. So I personally absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I just love, like, for me, that it's a nice reflection of the wildlife that pro wrestling brings. Like
Yeah.
I love all the aspects of pro wrestling. I love being able to say that I've been at Wembley Stadium with one of the top promotions that the world's ever seen. That's incredible. I also loved, as I mentioned alluded to earlier, that I main evented the Royal Albert Hall in the UK. It's a very famous venue where the Queen had a box to go and watch all of her favourite shows. And 2 days after wrestling at the Royal Albert Hall, I was wrestling in a car park in Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
Just as is the way with pro wrestling, that story's not even unique to me. That's also a thing that I love about pro wrestling. A million people have done this. So again, like you start thinking, I think I've done it all. I think I've done big arenas, I've done little venues, I've wrestled in barns, I've wrestled in car parks, and then pro wrestling provides again, and you get the invite to come and wrestle on a boat in the middle of the ocean. Where halfway through the tour, we were obviously, you were there yourself. We got the day off in the Dominican Republic, so we booked some excursions, making the most of the trip.
Hell yeah.
And we ended up in the mountains, jumping down waterfalls, and then back on the boat wrestling again. It's just, to me, that's what pro wrestling life is supposed to be. And when we were on that boat, listening to the Chili Peppers tribute band, and I'm looking around and I'm seeing like Luther, Jericho, everyone having a good time, and you think like, yeah, this is pro wrestling. Pro wrestling obviously is what happens between the ropes, but all of this is pro wrestling.
Yeah, love it. This is a great conversation, and we got so much more to go here. We got one more segment right here on AEW Unrestricted. Stay tuned. We've got the Grizzled Young Vets right here. Unrestricted. AEW Unrestricted. It's Will, it's Aubrey, but more importantly, we've got the Grizzled Young Vets here, part of the tag division here in AEW, and that's actually what I wanted to talk about next here because, you talked about the all-in moment and getting to kind of step in there with, the Young Bucks, FTR, the Acclaimed. They all have accolades to their name inside AEW, outside AEW. But at the same time, we've got a ton of tag teams here in the company as well. So kind of looking at the landscape as you were from the outside, as long as you guys were, who were some of the teams that you saw that you realized that made you kind of realize this is where we want to be and this is who we want to link up with?
So I have to go with the guys, what you've just mentioned there, like the Young Bucks. They would go down in history as one of the best tag teams to ever do it. And, we had the standoff with them at All In, with the promo straight afterwards with them. It's still there. I still want that match. I know when we do that match, it's going to be something special. I feel like our styles are going to kind of really, really complement each other. When that time is, I think that's going to be quite special.
Yeah, it's a testament to the competitive nature of this tag team division. I think AEW has the most competitive, the most stacked tag team division of any company around the world, and has done for a long time. We make a debut like that, and straight away, this isn't like any other tag division that we've ever entered, because we try to put ourselves out there, try to make a statement straight away. There are 30 other teams chomping at the bit, trying to do the same thing, and that's 30 other world-class teams. So, not to be too cliche, but AEW's gone on record, branded itself as we're the best wrestle. And when you're there, boots on the ground, and you're looking around, you realize why that phrase is being used, because the best tag teams in the world have all flocked to this division, to a company that takes tag team wrestling seriously and puts it on a pedestal. Incredibly proud to be part of this division, and incredibly aware of how competitive it is and how hard it is, to make progress in this division. But that's also part of the fun of it. We're no strangers to a bit of adversity ourselves. We're no strangers to a bit of a struggle. So we're here to keep on getting stuck in, to keep on mixing it up with all of these teams, because I haven't got enough fingers on my hands to list the quality tag teams that we want to work in this company.
Right. It's also really funny because there's so many people at AEW who came in as tag teams, but then people who have been paired up in tag teams. And I feel like AEW is not just the place where, we have great tag team wrestling. Like, we actually create good tag teams as well. So the Acclaimed was formed at AEW is probably like the best sort of example. But then you've got guys like you coming in as an established team. We've got the Young Bucks. We've got the Outrunners. We've got all these guys who have sort of made a name for themselves coming in and just adding to this mix of an amazing tag division. I'm kind of curious, is there anyone, we always say Young Bucks, we always say FTR, like always the guys kind of at the top. But are there any teams at AEW that you kind of feel or maybe don't get the love that they should, that you're really like wanting to tussle with, or that you have had a chance to, and you're looking to maybe wrestle them
Definitely.
again?
So there's two that I always kind of like daydream about and kind of think about what we could kind of do. One of them is a bit more established, but again, it's one of those teams that AEW's put together and it's just been magic. It's, Sammy and Dustin.
Mm-hmm.
Sammy and Dustin, you watch those two and it is like somewhat of a, father and son combo. And my mind goes crazy about how to kind of like pull on those heartstrings, how to really get the crowd to emotionally feel one way or another, and then we wrestle. I feel about So I feel
what
like
he's saying is he looks forward to breaking up that family,
right?
Yeah, or I just think that the promos and kind of like the build up to what a match could be and where you could kind of like steer, where this would be, if the kind of stirring the pot sort of thing. I think it'll be quite a special program with them. And then another team that's been around for a long time that I think are well respected, but they do get hidden a bit sometimes, is Top Flight. Those guys, I watch them all the time. They have such creative concepts. Is that the boys there?
That's the boys.
There we go.
Look at that.
There we go.
So I watch them all the time, and like they have such creative ideas and flow in their matches, and I never ever see them on a bad day. They don't take anything for granted. They work hard, and they've been around for some time now, and I do think me and Zach could really build something there with them that could really, get people looking in that direction as well. Where you've got like, the top teams of like, the Young Bucks, and you've got the FTRs. They're doing their thing. We also could be doing this thing over here.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think there could be some, again, it sounds really cliche, but I do think there could be magic there.
and like we came to this company for a lot of the obvious names that people throw around, the Young Bucks, the FTRs, and things like that. But we also had our eyes on these are all names that we had discussed, which made us really hunt down this company and try and force our way in the door, because this is where we wanted to be, because we wanted to mix it up with these guys. And just something I wanted to point out there, to kind of touch on what you'd said as well, was there's also the teams that we never, now that we're here, like we didn't come here for them because they didn't exist. Mm-hmm. But then they start popping up and you're like, oh, well, I never even considered that. I never considered Jet Speed. Because it wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And then, boom, now they're here. We've known both for a while, but we've never interacted. We've never interacted with Jet Speed as the tag team Jet Speed, and those two have just came out of nowhere. Incredible synergy together. Like you'd think that they've been tagging for years, and that's something to be excited about when it's in our division. So that's another match that I'm looking forward to.
Definitely.
And that's one of those things that I really appreciate about AEW, is not just kind of that ability to, bring those tag teams in, but tag teams find that synergy and they come out of nowhere, and then they can end up becoming a top act. Like you think about back in 2020 with Kenny Omega and Hangman, right? Like that was not anything anybody was thinking about when AEW first launched, but then that's one of the most remembered tag teams. And you think about All In just a few weeks ago, Swerve and Will Ospreay were operating like those guys have been tagging for decades.
Yeah, and obviously like we've been there front row for a couple of their battles together through the independents and then into AEW. Mm-hmm. So I guess their relationship has been forged in a different way. But I do love the fact that AEW shines the spotlight on those kind of guys and on those relationships. If they identify that, like, look, no one else in the world was thinking about putting Kenny and Hangman together, but the AEW office saw that opportunity, they put it together, steer them in the right direction, and look what the result is. It's incredible. Same with Dustin and Sammy, and just to bring that up again, because they're guys that we've got our eyes on. So that's a match that we do really want, and that's not a match that I would have said I would have wanted a couple of years ago because it didn't exist.
Right.
So there's probably a few of them that we don't know about yet. That's what's so exciting about this company. There's matches that I don't even know I'm going to have, and I'm excited about the potential of. I don't know what's coming, but I know it's going to be good.
Right.
Love it. There's one day I do want to take a look back at because I remember it being such a hectic day. And that was April 27th, 2024. And I'm sure that day is going to ring a bell to you guys. But that day, I remember so much about it. It was day 2 of Dynamite Collision Loop in Daly's place. And, that was a day that also Tony was participating in the NFL draft as he has to do. And so we had the NFL cameras kind of everywhere. And that was also the day that you guys had your first in-ring bout in an AEW ring against the Acclaimed at Daly's place. I'll start with you, JD, kind of talk a little bit about that day and kind of how everything came together and what it was like kind of having that experience with the Acclaimed in Daly's place, a place that means so much to AEW fans and AEW altogether.
So we were there for the Dynamite, and we did a promo on the Acclaimed then. And as soon as we finished that promo, I kind of felt it's good and bad because it's good because you feel alive, but it's bad because you can't sleep. You do this promo, and all of a sudden, after this promo, you go, it's go time. Like until that match has happened, it's just go time. You've got your head in this frame of mind where you can't stop thinking about ideas of what to do, really how to kind of like make an impact, and don't rest on your what you kind of know. Really just go out there. And on the day, it's so strange because some people, it was like you're in the mix at that point. They've been there for a few years, and when the music's playing and everything, you're in the ring and everything. That's intense, 100%. But through the daytime, once you kind of get the familiar surroundings, you are relaxed a little bit. I remember that day driving up from Orlando, just not relaxed, getting there, and again, like friendly and everything, but in the back of your mind, you are thinking about A, B, C, D, E, F, all these things, and it's a weird thing. It happens every so often, and it's a double-edged sword in the sense that like it's great for performance, but like for the initial moment of like I don't know, like your mental health, it's just like not great, but like I kind of have to do it. You do go into this like sort of like, it sounds really really cheesy, but you kind of go into this like mindset of kind of going to war sort of thing. Like when you're going towards this like big significant match, and that's do or die sort of thing. If we don't do well here, and we know how stacked the division is, we know how passionate and how talented AEW is up and down. If we don't do well here, we don't do well. Like it's just it is what it is, right? And we're not one of those teams that's going to be like, yeah, we'll do well all the time, because it's not the case. We don't rest on that. And again, you're pumped up, you're ready for it. You are in the right headspace, but at the same time, you're not thinking about 1 second after the match. You're not thinking about, like, as far as you're concerned, where life ends is at the end of the match. At that point, it sounds really really cheesy, but it is kind of like that, because you're just so like, that's where your vision is. It's just for this match. And I remember when the bell rang, just the focus we had was just, you didn't forget to breathe, you didn't skip a beat or anything. It was just like, right, here we are, this is it. And we had some nice words with Tony afterwards. It was nice.
We knew it was sink or swim, and
it really was. Yeah,
we had a lot riding on that. We had made our decision a couple of months earlier to bet on ourselves, and this essentially was what we had been building up to. Everything was geared towards this. Everything was geared towards AEW. That was our that was our goal. We didn't hide that from anyone. We let everyone know this is where we want to be. We want to go to AEW, and then it all led to that moment. And as JD kind of alluded to there, like we knew it was a bit of sink or swim because we know like we shit the bed here. we're not getting an invite back, so we're gonna have to show up and do something. Obviously, the Acclaimed are we're an absolute top team. So we knew we had to step up, and went pretty well. Didn't get the result that we wanted, but from bell to bell,
Billy did get involved. Billy did get involved.
Exactly. We didn't get the result that we wanted bell to bell, but we did get the result that we wanted in the long term because here we are.
There we go.
Representing the
company. Right. There you go.
The idea of like afterwards, we were, and again, I try to, I love social media and I know how powerful it is and how amazing it can be, but I don't try to, I try to have a balance between real life and social media, but I don't mute that, because I do know some people's tweets and, some people's posts and stuff, they are just coming from an actual genuine point, and I do remember reading, quite a few people saying like, we belong. And that meant a lot to me. That really did mean a lot to me, actually, yeah.
Damn, man. I mean, like, I'm just like all smiles because everything about this has been so great. This whole interview and this whole discussion, like, you guys absolutely do belong. You're such an incredible addition to this tag team. You're to this tag roster. You're an incredible addition to the locker room, to AEW. It's just the drive and the betting on yourself, like that attitude that I think people really, really need to have in order to be successful here. And you guys are just doing it. It makes all the sense in the world that you would take that bet on yourselves and you'd come here. And I'm so happy that you did. And I'm glad we got to talk to you guys.
Thank you very much. It means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
I appreciate it.
This is awesome. This is awesome. Thank you to the Grizzled Young Vets. You can follow James Drake on Instagram and X, James Drake Pro. And you can follow Zack Gibson on Instagram at Zack Gibson 01 and on Twitter at Zack Gibson GYV. AEW Unrestricted is sponsored in part by Upper Deck. You can collect your favorite wrestlers in the 2025 Upper Deck AEW and start your trading card collection today. You can unwrap autograph, memorabilia, premium tech inserts. Visit upperdeck.com to learn more. You can listen to and follow this podcast, AEW Unrestricted, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the fun little podcast apps where you can listen to your podcast. Check out the video episode on YouTube, AEW Unrestricted. Just search it. Hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you're not an AEW insider, you can get early access to ticket pre-sales, special merchandise offers, and so much more straight to your inbox. Sign up today, AEWTIX.com. And of course, don't forget where you can see all of us and all of our work. AEW Dynamite on TBS Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. and streaming on HBO Max. AEW Collision live on Saturdays on TNT and streaming on HBO Max. ROH streams every Thursday on Honor Club. I'm Aubrey Edwards with my co-host, Will Washington. Thank you so much for listening. Peace.